It is time for a best of 3 series of top level StarCraft 2. It's time for a Protoss versus Terran. We're in the upper right, playing in blue. We're looking inside of the main base of Classic. His opponent down in the bottom left, playing with the red Terran SCVs, joined of course by the Polar Bear. We have none other than Clem, widely considered to be the #1 Terran player on the planet. But Classic is certainly no pushover. Now, this is, of course, on the brand new patch, and a lot of things have changed. Although I will say, at least in all of the PVTs that I've seen so far on the new patch, it seems like it's mostly different flavors of Blink Stalker openers. I don't really know exactly if that's how the meta is going to settle, but we've been mostly seeing Blink Stalker openers still from Protoss. Obviously, though, the gateway change really does force, well, especially Protoss, to make a bunch of decisions early on that they didn't need to make previously. Classic, for example, not opting to go and wall off the Reaper jump up pad. We're not seeing any of the spicier variations. Instead, we're just going to plant the first pylon right next to the very first gas, and it's going to make it technically a little bit easier for Clem to get some mid-game scouting in and all the rest of it, but he should be reasonably safe. The big decision right now to make as a Protoss player on the new patch: when do you transform your gateways into warp gates? A lot of Protoss players are just sort of paying the warp gate tax. So when you get the warp gate research done, you get 2 things. First off, you get the option to transform your gateways into warp gates, which now costs 25 minerals and 25 gas. And secondly, in regular gateway production, you get a 40% boost. Meaning that I think most of the time you're probably fine to leave it in gateway form, especially defensively, and then not pay rather the tax until a little bit later. Now maybe I'm mistaken, as Classic here decides to take a start base first. I find this very risky, especially on the new patch. We'll get to that in just a little bit, but it seems like the majority of the Protoss players right now are basically saying, yo, we are just gonna pay the gateway tax. We just sort of pretend that a gateway is now roughly 175 minerals and 25 gas. And we just send it. We just transform it instantly, and we don't even play around the new mechanic. It has to be a misplay. It has to be a mistake. It's going to take a little bit of refinement, I guess, before we will really see Protoss players optimize it. But I'm hoping that Classic here is going to research the warp gate upgrade, but then not immediately transform the gateway into a warp gate. But maybe with this particular setup he needs to. So this is a powerful start for Clem. It's very expensive to go for an engineering bay block. You effectively delay the Protoss expansion, but you also delay your own. The main advantage is now this position, right? So since a lot of Protoss players are a little bit hesitant with their gateway situation, so we have the Reaper hiding off to the side. He knows the timing at which that Stalker would come out, so that's a cheeky little move right here by Clem. Yep, it's going to secure him a worker kill, potentially even 2. Stalker has to get back into the main. That was really nice for Clem. Yeah, I think actually now, though, on the new patch, it is better than ever before to go for that engineering bay block, at least temporarily, until Protoss players figure out what they're supposed to do. Okay, now we find ourselves on lockdown. That's map #1 in this best of 3. Command center on the low ground is going to finish. Ooh, it's a Stargate opener here for Classic. Okay. So this is not going to be 17 different flavors of Blink Stalker. I think it's mostly, though, due to the fact that he had to take his third base first. We usually see a lot more Stargate responses against this type of shenanigans, but you now have to be in the right place at the right time. Twilight Council as well on the back of this. So Classic is going to be, taking matters into his own hands here. Ooh, hello. Sleeping on the job a little bit with the Stalkers. Still, though, Stalkers have quite a bit of HP. Probably best to not lose any of them. Cyclone is going to be out in a moment. Clem will be fishing for a free Stalker kill. Could theoretically also go charge, I think. Blink has become very popular yet again, but only time will tell how the meta will actually settle. Are we going to lose all 3 Stalkers? So we tried to keep everything alive, and then in the end we end up losing 2 Stalkers here. Potentially a third as well when the lock-on cooldown resets. Super painful here for Classic. Yeah. Okay, at least he gets the high ground. Kinda hate it. I kinda hate it for Protoss. Super painful. So now we literally have one Stalker and then one Phoenix. This is suddenly going to make any sort of follow-up here for Clem extremely hard to deal with. We already have a little bit of a split push. Cyclone threatening to move towards the third base, or I guess the very first expansion. Now the Marines in the main base are going to really hurt. Recall here to try and get some of the units back in, but it's like nothing, man. Okay, Clem decides to respect it, but I really think he could have fought that one Stalker and Phoenix off just fine. It's going to be charged indeed. Classic still ahead when it comes to the worker count. He also does decide to go for the third base. That one has been planted down on the low ground here. Okay. Barracks coming up. We have a Raven available too. It'll probably be ready to drop a couple of auto turrets here behind that back of the mineral line. But right now we're mostly waiting for the real big move out here for Clem. Then again though, you do have to be respectful here of the Protoss army. It is scary. It is strong. We did, by the way, just pay the warp gate tax. So just 75 minerals, 75 gas, straight down the drain. Is this smart? I don't think so. Maybe in this instance, when your bases are split, it might be the correct move. But I really feel like you could get more units out by not immediately transforming all of your warp gates. Protoss players, though, do appear to be a little bit stubborn. I don't know. I haven't really seen a lot of people experiment with it either. Maybe they've just kind of decided it's not worth it. I've got a feeling we'll figure out that it is worth it to not transform your warp gates immediately in like a week time. I don't know. A lot of the top level Protoss players just simply just pay the tax and that's it. A little bit surprised by that. Anyways, Stimpack, combat shields, +1 infantry attacks coming up here for Clem. We do have that proxy pylon. This is honestly one of the nice changes for Protoss. So in the past, you always needed to have a gateway attached to it to get the speedy warp-ins. But now warp-ins are all flat. Meaning like you no longer need, like there's two things, right? You no longer need to proxy the gateway, but also it's much easier to just hide a single pylon than it is to hide a pylon together with a gateway. It's very common for Terran to start flying around it a little bit and to scout for any sort of proxies. It's much easier to have a sneaky pylon hiding in the corner than a gigantic pylon and a gateway right next to it, right? It takes up way more space. Clem decides to play this passively, but he of course knows that he's in a very comfortable position at this point. We have Stimpack and combat shields finishing up soon together with the +1, and that will be the big timing at which he should move out. Now we have a lot of zealots getting warped in. There will be about one moment when Classic can attack move and then take his hands off the keyboard, right? Like there's very little micro with charge slot that you can do, but he sees right now that Terran's going in for the move out, and that means he's taking this as an opportunity to move in. Terran units on top of the supply depot blocking the depot from being raised. Terran army goes back home, but we have a sentry. I love the sentry blocking the Terran out of their own natural expansion. SCVs are gonna have to pay the price. Still, of course, this only lasts for like 10 seconds. You need to have a follow-up plan, Classic. Is it a good idea to recall right now, or do we just send it? Third command center here is being targeted down. He's lifting up the Widow Mine as well. Command center gets cancelled. I think we have to go home, Classic. I think we gotta recall. We gotta get out of there because this Terran is angry. He's gonna head across the map in just a moment. And how in the world are you gonna hold this push? There's a lot of Terran army. If we have a look at the army size, yeah, this is my main concern. Cute play from Classic, but losing those 3 Stalkers in the early game really knocked them back to the Stone Age. Momentum is just heavily on the side of the Terran here, and there's no Storm. I mean, maybe we want to get it eventually. We can maybe get an Archon out or something, but yeah, that's what we've got. This is not a good unit composition to be fighting this gigantic Terran army with. Maybe if we had Colossi, it might be possible. I actually feel like this is kind of unnecessary, but I guess he doesn't want to get surrounded. Stims, by the way, are kind of expensive. He needs to activate it yet again. Here we go. Widow Mines do get lifted, but not all of them indeed did get lifted up into the air. Not enough Phoenixes remain, and that means that Clem can really now push really nicely. There's one siege tank in the back as well. Widow Mines are all cleaned up at this point in time, but likewise, I think the Protoss army is just being decimated. Nice moves right there from Classic, right? Like, he clearly had a backup plan in case this sort of fight ended up happening. But I think Clem is managing this all very well. He did rebuild the 3rd command center, by the way. He's going to be landing that one right over here on the low ground. There's a new Nexus coming up for Classic, who will not go down without a fight. But I still don't really see how he's going to be able to clean up all of these units. +1 infantry armor is going to be done as well momentarily. Classic, by the way, did get +2 armor of his own, which is honestly quite impressive. We have a cheeky little Widowmine drop as well in the back of the Protoss' main base. One probe is going to sacrifice itself. There's a lot of Terran reinforcements as well, ready to head across. I don't think Clem knows. No, he did see. I thought he didn't know about this base over here. But I guess he's not really in a hurry. Now he's going to kill the rocks that he knocked down himself. It's also going to give the Medivacs a bit of time to heal up the Terran troops once more. I've noticed, by the way, that Classic usually is very chill in games like this. A lot of Terran players just deal with a Protoss right now that's ripping off the Band-Aid themselves. Classic is always happy to just play it out, but this really feels like such an uphill battle. And I feel like the outcome, especially against a world-class Terran like Clem, is pretty much always going to be a Terran victory. But hey, Classic is going to give it a shot. We even have the Ghost Academy right now coming up. Clem probably wondering, like, wait a second, did I actually, like, miss something? Did something go wrong? But nah, this is just Clem crossing the T's, dotting the I's. He's going to win map number 1. At Eternity's Edge, game number 2 in this best of 3 series. Should we go for another supply depot into engineering bay block, Clem? It seems kind of good to me. I really don't know if it's going to be one of those strategies that will be good in the long run. I feel like whenever we get a new patch, engineering bay blocks are really good, and then the longer that the game goes on, or the longer that a patch is available for, engineering bay blocks kind of fall off a little bit. It's one of those strategies, I guess, that normally never really goes away, but right now, especially since the early game for Protoss is just slightly more expensive, at least in the way that Protoss players are, playing it right now, it seems like a really good choice. Looks like we're not going for it, though, this time around, because the main problem you run into as a Terran is that it's just really expensive. You can imagine, right? Like, if you have 12 starter workers and you send out a scouting worker early, it's like maybe, what, 8% of your total economy? If you do the same thing with 8 workers, it adds up really quickly. It's one of the reasons why scouting workers in general are quite expensive. So if you're just sending them for the sake of it, you're not really using it for anything in particular. I mean, I see this all the time, especially with like ladder heroes, right? Like if you're sending scouting workers just because you see high-level players sending scouting workers, you probably have to have a proper reasoning as to why you're doing so. Just copying for copying's sake is not a great idea because it really does hurt economically. Clem, though, pretty much always SCV scouts. He never skips it in Terran versus Zork, I don't think, and I don't think he really does it much in Terran versus Protoss either. Yeah. He's always looking. He's always watching. Got ourselves a gateway into Nexus on the low ground. Cybercore on the back of this as well. And now that Classic did not get his natural expansion blocked, I wonder if he's gonna keep the gateway in its regular gateway form for a little bit longer. I'm not sure. It feels like the Korean Protoss players have just decided that they pay the tax. They don't care. I'll try and see if I can get some more Skilless games. So Skilless did participate at Home Story Cup. I have already seen all of the games. I mean, I'm down to recast some of it, but it just seems kind of lame. I figured most Protoss players would catch on to it by now, but not really the case apparently. But Skilless was going for some really cute gateway openers, where he was researching warp gates and then used the 40% additional production speed to get units out. I know. That's a crazy idea, but like, you can use the production speed improvement. Huh? Oh, sorry, buddy. Got body blocked by the Stalker right as it spawned. Shout out to the Nova fan club. Thumbs up, everybody. Just like Nova. Twilight Council this time around here for Classic. Okay. We have a pretty quick third command center here for Clem. Very quick third command center, actually, for Clem. This is very risky, because if Protoss does any form of aggression early, you are in some trouble. Then again, of course, Clem is now leading this series 1-0. And Classic isn't really known as a very cheesy player. It's maybe not really something you want to do against, well, some of the more feisty Protoss players out there. But Clem is likely going to be able to get away with it in this type of game. Would not be surprised at all. We've had 0 scouting actually here for Classic. For all he knows, the opponent didn't even spawn here. For all he knows, the command center took off at the very beginning of the game and planted itself down over here. I'd be very surprised. Robo facility, and indeed good old blink this time around. Okay, so warp gates are finishing up. Are we immediately going to transform the warp gates? Don't do it, Classic. It's actually worse. We don't need to, man. We can just produce. No! Don't do it! He's gonna do it. He's gonna do it. But like, why though? So let's think about it, right? So it's a 40% production increase, but obviously you get a first warp in available as soon as the warp gate finishes. I've got a feeling though, even if you just plan on making 2 units out of a gateway each, isn't it just worthwhile to only maybe transform one of them? Like, there's gotta be another level of refinement here that we are not yet occupying, right? And we're not yet realizing. Because now, why did we have a 3rd gateway? If we have 2 gateways, we could pretty much produce as much as we can with 3 warp gates. So wouldn't that allow us to just get this Nexus down a little bit quicker? Maybe I'm missing something really important here. I guess you don't really have much of a response if Terran decides to be aggressive. But we are definitely not playing this optimally, right? Am I crazy? Am I loco? I might be. Finally, by the way, we've got a factory inside of the main base. I'm assuming a starport in a moment. A reactor onto the factory as well, so we can start bumping out those medevacs 2 at a time. Yeah, they picked all of the brightest Protoss players and put them in a room together. And they tried to figure out what the new standard is. And it turns out that the new standard in Protoss versus Terran is the same as the old, except slightly worse, because everything's more expensive. And in Protoss versus Zerg, it's Void Race. Not getting any of the advantages that we could have had. One of the Stalkers did end up going down. Pretty decent trade, of course, but this is Clem on triple command center for such a long time already. Classic has not been scouting at all. He doesn't know. He just found out, so you have to be blindly prepared against an opener like this from Clem. He's getting charged together, though, with Colossi, and then also a 4th Nexus here, too. Keep in mind that the Nexi now no longer provide as much supply as they did in the previous patch, which is specifically done to help out in this matchup. These Protoss players were mass expanding all over. Clem is going to see this base as well. He can just kill it. That's not enough Protoss, is it? That's not enough Protoss, is it? The force fields are good, though. Okay. Man, those force fields were very clutch. Cancel on the Nexus. Clem still, of course, not with any medevacs here. There are medevacs out now. Classic blinking after it. Oh. You see that? That's not your graphics card dying. That's apparently a little... Ah! At Eternity's Edge apparently has a little bit of a glitch. In the meantime, though, the Protoss army here glitching out as well. -1 Colossus. But this is not so bad for Classic here. I actually thought that this was going to be worse for him, especially considering there was no scouting whatsoever. And he just played a very expensive early game, but he's actually kind of fine. +1/+1 upgrades coming up. He does not know about this medevac drop that's currently headed to the main base, although he's anticipating it. Zealots going to the bottom of the map, probably trying to do a run-by into the net. And it looks like the double forges here will be saved for now. What about the Zealots in the natural of the Terran? Not really going to achieve too much. Armory in the meantime right here for Clem. 2nd engineering bay as well. He'll be able to fire up the +2/+1 here in a moment. And slowly but surely, Classic is doing the thing that he really liked to do in the previous patch, and that is gobble up as many bases as possible. I think it's pretty much impossible for Clem to take this base in the bottom left. In PvT, this is a Protoss base. And I think that's probably the reason why we decided to take this as our fourth rather than this. Look at the minimap though. Classic is occupying all of it now. He's planting pylons left, right, and center. I do like the timing of this, actually. Just planting the pylons all over is very, very useful. Although this one is gonna likely get spotted. Clem's factory just does not see it. But he does decide to go into the good old Viking production here. Ghosts have become very much so spellcasters in this matchup. You really can't just make 12 ghosts and call it a day. Disruptor also coming up. Disruptor's now one-shot ghosts because the ghost was reduced to 100 health. Command Center number 4 coming up. Zealot run by. Prepared at least on the right side of this map. Clem's looking around. Does not quite spot much. But he does spot that there is a Nexus coming up in the far bottom left. And this, I think, needs to be addressed. Classic's army very aggressively positioned. Observer here also sees everything. So Classic was very blind in the early game, but now he's got vision everywhere. Clem's army is dangerous, though. Like I said, he's got double upgrades, even triple upgrades coming up. Viking count does need to grow a little bit bigger still. I say that. We only have 2 Colossi, actually. It's fine against 2 Colossi to have 9 of them. But this now looks remarkably similar to the previous patch, right? Oh my god, look at that. I've never seen that before on this map. That's crazy. Giant Colossus, or giant, I guess, what is this, a Zealot head? Anyways, right next to the Zealot head, a gigantic Warpin as well. Double Prism coming up here for Classic. He already got Gravitic Drive, that is the movement speed for those units. But Clem is finding a potential opportunity here as he's trying to see if he can sandwich his army. Massive EMP on the majority of all of the Protoss units, and Classic's army supply is gonna start plummeting down. We do have a Disruptor Nova attempted, but the Nova so far get denied. Good splitties right there by Clem, who is absolutely decimating this Protoss army. What a gamer. In the meantime, we have some Zealots going around. We do have a bunch of SCVs dying too, but I think the losses have been minimized so far. Clem, in the meantime, also getting his planetary fortress started here at the bottom of the map. Say goodbye to your 4th base, Classic. Excellent micro here by the French Terran. It's like he just turned it on, right? Like he was happily macroing at home, but then, boom. When Clem locks in, it is extremely difficult to stop him. He even killed one of his own Marauders there. He probably looked at him funny. Yeah, if you become complacent, especially as Protoss with a very expensive robo-based army, you just get wiped off the map. It's a slow-moving army. If you get out-positioned, you just get destroyed. There is still that Observer over here that's giving Classic so much value. Marauder still not, of course, one-shot by Disruptors. Clem will be happy to just play Marine Marauder against this sort of thing. Classic still fine, though, as far as the supply count goes. There's also Zealots now in the main base. That's that double Prism drop going in. Very, very annoying to have to deal with this. Classic actually trying to make the transition to the Gateway Man style. So the Gateway style, of course, is just more expensive now than it used to be. But after opening Robo and very quick Robo Bay, he wanted to play Mass Nexus and just start warping in ridiculous amounts of Zealots. Well, that's one Prism going down. The other one is escaping on the right side. But losing those 2 Nexi, I think, is very, very painful. Classic did take another base over here. But ultimately, this entire playstyle got nerfed. The gateways are more expensive. The Nexi provide less supply. And it's just harder to get to this stage in the game. It's a very frustrating playstyle, by the way, for Terrans to go up against. It is probably also the biggest, I would say, like the biggest problem that we've had over the last like 3 years or so in StarCraft 2 in general. The mass expanding from Protoss and Terran just sort of sitting in their starting quadrant, forced to take the punching to the face. So it's nice to see some nerfs there, but it's also nice to see that it may very well still be a viable playstyle, as we have Classic going in. Oh, blowing up some of his own units there. That's an interesting take. Marine Marauder Medevac counterattack, though, in the meantime. Clem is going to continue where he ended previously. That'll be the end of the third Nexus for sure. And honestly, he can carve a path straight south, because there are more bases that he can go ahead and take out. Massive reinforcing army here as well for the Frenchman. Yep, that's another kill right here on the 4th. There's enough medevacs available to send, I think, this entire Terran army back. There's also that new load hotkey on the medevacs. Yeah, that's it being used. Did you see that? So the medevacs now have a new button. Warp Prisms have it too. Dropper Lords also have it. There's a button that allows you to quickly load up all of the units. I actually think it's kind of lame, but it's very useful in situations like this. A little bit of skill expression lost, in my opinion. Disruptor going in. Another Disruptor being sent from the top. That'll be -2 Disruptors, though. -3, I think, here in the end. And there's another one over here hiding all the way in the back. They are now a little bit of a different color whenever their ability is not available. So it's a bit easier for Terrans to read. Ooh, careful. He does snipe both of them yet again. Clem playing with fire. But it turns out he's really good at playing with fire. WW here gets cold. And just like that, it's Clem who obtains the 2-0 win.